That same initial question, what is your assessment so far of the OSP's handling of the Kenoforiata matter?
Well, good morning again. And before I get into your question, let me just extend our deepest condolences, on behalf of the Office of the President, to the family of the Vice President, Madam Nana Opoku Ajman Prof. This morning, there is a pre-burial service for her late sister. And so we're all in mourning.
Sincere condolences.
Solidarity with our mother at the presidency. She's been through some heavy moments, but God will bear her up, and we're also bearing her up in prayer. So from here, we'll be going to the Rich Church where the service will be happening. So to Prof and family, please accept our deepest condolences and continue to be strengthened by God's favor and mercy. You have done us a lot of good this morning. You've traveled the course of this particular case, and you have called Martin. Martin is my friend, even though I think that sometimes when you have us in the morning, you should at least pick our preliminary comments before you go onto the phone.
Apologies, I wanted to lay that legal foundation because
everything is not legal. You could still have brought him in.
Just because we have done, the timelines, because we want to put certain things into perspective, and I think that will help the discourse. And once we get that out of the way, we can talk some more.
Martin, next time you come at the end of the program, not the beginning.
It helps us.
It does sometimes.
Privy to everything that happens there. You may be privy, but I will not be.
Yes.
Okay. So not being a legal person.
I think it's just everything is not legal. Sometimes you have just a simple sense, common sense opinions on the matter. But that's just by the way. I want to take a look at because everything has been said and the lawyers have said it. And I think as of today, the forum that is cloaked with the jurisdiction to make the determination as to whether this case should continue is the courts. And I think they've taken a decision. And I don't have much to say with that as a government spokesperson. We have continuously insisted that the rule of law should work at all times. And even as we enforce the rule of law, we must be fair in upholding the rights of all individuals, especially as a political actor, knowing how vicious our politics is. When you get the position to sit on this side, you don't take it for granted, and you don't speak with arrogance, knowing that change is the only constant, and that whatever systems we establish and entrench are the same systems that are likely to be held, against you. So at all times, I personally, and I know the president himself has consistently called on all institutions to do their work. Because mind you, one of the three legs of the 2024 election, especially the NDC manifesto, was accountability.
That's right.
Even as we spoke about resetting Ghana, Ghanaians agreed that we must hold everyone accountable, especially those who were in the previous administration, because it is their administration that is currently under audit. And even as His Excellency says that, he continuously repeats that any member of his government who also falls short of the ethical and expected standards would be held to the same standards. So by all means, let the law work for everyone equally. Let some people be above the law. And if you look at the trajectory of the case, I think the jury is in favor of the OSP that he hasn't quite breached the rights of, everyone. What I want to look at is the alternative narrative that the New Patriotic Party seems to suggest.
Right.
Trying to suggest that this particular case might be a case of political witch hunt against a political opponent, other than the key issues that were germane issues covered by the media that require answers. As of today, that $58 million investment into the cathedral project is a blot that requires answering. Nobody is guilty until proven otherwise. But to get to that point, actions must be taken, investigations must happen, and people, you know, accused of wrongdoing or of any offense must be taken through the due process of law to come to a conclusion about their guilt or otherwise. That is part of the process. But if you say, and insist that this might be a witch hunt, I have a question to ask of the New Patriotic Party and their communicators. Did they set up the office of the Special Prosecutor to be a witch hunt institution? I want to posit that perhaps that was the real intent of behind the setting up of the Office of Special Prosecutor by the then administration. And why do I say that? If you look at actions and activities since the establishment of the OSP, with the first OSP, Martin Kaiser Amidu, when he came into office, and the issues he wanted to investigate, high amongst them was the Ejepa deal. Martin Kaiser Amidu had to resign from that position as the first office holder on grounds of frustration. He's the one that exited with the bold epistle that bequeathed to this nation mother serpent of corruption. It was the considered opinion of Martin Kaiser Amidu that the Nana Bawumia administration were not committed to the fight against corruption, and that all attempts to establish the office and make it efficient and effective in fighting corruption were frustrated at every turn. He cited individuals higher up in the administration of the Nana Bawumia government, alleging that they were behind his frustration to demand justice or to investigate matters involving members of their administration. One would love to think that if you are a real anti-corruption crusader, you must be willing to turn the spotlight and the sunlight first on your own government, on your own appointees, which His Excellency continues to speak about, which we have evidence to prove that even in the era of John Mahama chapter 1, he was able to take action and allow institutions to work to the extent of prosecuting members of his administration. There is the difference. Now come to the real motive behind the setup of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. I think we were saved by the integrity of the individuals that were mistakenly appointed to that office. Perhaps there was a belief that those individuals would do the bidding of actually looking and prosecuting political opponents rather than looking at misdeeds of the government of the day. Martin Kaiser Amidu resigned on those grounds that he could no longer work with the government of Nana Bawumia because he was convinced that they were against accountability. And that was how that Ejepa matter ended. Usher in Kizzy Ajabin, who till then was known as the darling boy, he even worked in the chambers of the former president. So Kizzy Ajabin comes, and not long after he takes office, he begins to sing dirges, similar to the songs that were sung by Martin Amidu, when he took steps to investigate matters involving members of the New Patriotic Party. What could be described as what broke the camel's back.
When he referred to himself as a lonely bird.
Yes.
Right.
Or can say, or aquanoma.
Right.
Or the den.
Or the ne.
Ni den abo afori. Obeye die ni kwa abo afori. Obeye die obetimi aye. Ni breso ano ko.
Right.
He actually addressed a press conference stating a litany of challenges he is going through in his quest to seek accountability of government and other individuals. So who did the NPP set up the OSP for? For opponents? The Cecilia Dapa matter was really the height of the frustration that Kisi Ajabin experienced under the outgone era, to the extent of threats on his life, as he himself, a well-known lawyer, has put out in the media. I don't think he will make those claims without just cause, because if he does that, then that will be very unfair on his part to make baseless claims against his own appointee, like the appointer, the person who appointed him. He had to literally end his investigation on the Cecilia Dapa matter. When the president, in his letter accepting the resignation, literally declared Madame Cecilia Dapa innocent even before any further investigation. That was true testimony and testament to where the president, the outgone president, then stood with regards to accountability. In their sense, accountability only works if it is targeted at political opponents. Towards the dying embers of the administration, when Kisi Ajabin went into the matter involving the former, the current president, John Mahama, then candidate Mahama, there was a lot of vitriol when he came out with his findings that President John Mahama had no role to play in that particular matter.
You say that those findings didn't sit well with certain individuals. They were hoping for a different outcome.
Of course. And then that further reinforced the perception that the real intendment behind the setting up of the office of the Special Prosecutor was not that Ghana would be known as the hub of anti-corruption. It was not to take a box that, there are institutional frameworks being, set up to fight corruption. It was really to use it as an instrument to politically witch hunt opponents, as we have seen by these examples that I've given. So for me, to hit against that alternative narrative, it has no basis. It has no basis today for the New Patriotic Party, having done what they have done to frustrate not the first OSP, not the second OSP, who has today been given a new leash of life. You haven't heard him make any comment anywhere that he's being frustrated in the line of his work.
In fact, quite interestingly,
you haven't heard him accuse any member of this administration, not the Attorney General, not the President of the Republic, not anyone, of trying to impede his work.
In fact, on the contrary, because you mentioned Cecilia Dapa, he makes the point, that's Kisi Ajabin, Special Prosecutor, that at the time he was investigating that matter, he had taken some documents to Iyoko to investigate, and he hit a wall, and the investigations did not progress. But under the new leadership at Iyoko, under Raymond Dacha, those documents have been recalled, and the matter is now being looked at again.
Yes. And if you look at the commentary, the levels of vitriol Kisi Ajabin is receiving from the New Patriotic Party quarters because of this Ken Oforiatta matter, it leaves you in no doubt as to why that office was set up and why the NPP seems very disappointed that OSP is doing the kind of independent work it's doing, why it's holding all manner of persons, irrespective of the political divide you belong to account, which is really how we must build some of these institutions. What I would surmise and add is a word of caution to a council, to the OSP, that in that role is an expectation of being fair and just to everyone. That includes Ken Oforiatta. And that to the extent that he can convince all of us by his actions that he's following due process, which we expect him to follow, that he is fair in the manner that he's conducting his work, and that his work is not influenced by malice, by ill intent, by feelings of revenge, because we must look at that as well. To the extent that he convinces the mass of the public that his actions are purely to the service of this nation, I think that he should be able to proceed with that good intent if he's guided by those high values. And also to members of New Patriotic Party, as well as the family of Ken Ofori-Atta, everybody who is a family member of anyone going through any process reserves the right to stand by their family member, even if that family member has done wrong, because that is what filial affiliations calls us to do, that we will stand by our family members in their times of trial. You know, whether they've done wrong or they are found not to have done any wrong, that is all expected of family members. But they also then should not run under the cloak of political vindictiveness and witch hunt to escape accountability. I think we must all embrace the notions of an opportunity to prove ourselves, you know, innocent of charges that have been made against us. And when processes are on course for such action, we shouldn't quickly run to the position of declaring political witch hunt or political vindictiveness. It is not the nature of His Excellency to rule in such a country.
Right.
And this is where we are as a government. Let the processes continue. Let the right forum adjudicate these matters, and let justice be served where it has to be served, on whom it has to be served.
Shamima, thank you so much for your thoughts. I'm